Hello, my name is Chris Antea. I am the Intel Security McAfee System Engineer here at Tech Data, and today we're going to be going over basic navigation of EPO Cloud. Okay, once we're at the login portal, enter in your credentials, click Log On. Then you will be presented the main console within EPO. The Getting Started dashboard will be presented. Then we can add new endpoints to EPO simply by creating a customized installation. Click on the installation button, name the group that you want to create. Today we'll put sales, and then choose the operating system that you would like to download the agent to, what operating system is on the endpoint. As you can see, we have Windows, Mac, and Linux. Today we're going to choose Windows, and then by default, we keep all these boxes here checked for the security firewall, the platform, threat prevention, web control, and we can actually put the McAfee client proxy, which I have loaded in this EPO. Once we do that, we click on Done. Now this is going to create a URL that is going to be made to send to the endpoint via email, a shared drive, or a USB stick to be able to click on that, and you'll be able to install it on that endpoint. The agent will be loaded on the endpoint, and then once it reports back to EPO, it's going to send back down to the endpoint the various protection you've chosen on that previous screen. So as we can see, we now have the sales URL, and then that URL that you can click on the endpoint to be able to download the agent to that particular endpoint. Once the endpoint clicks on that particular URL, it's going to show up in the system group, and then the system tree will see that the sales group was created. As we can see here, there's no systems reporting back into EPO yet because we don't have anybody clicking on that URL. But if they did, I've created this Intel demo computers tree group. The computers that have clicked on and have downloaded the agent are now reporting back up into EPO. So now we can take a look at one of these systems and get the detailed information about that system once that agent reports back to EPO. Now, as you can see system properties here of this particular system. We can get detailed information on the time zone. We can see the operating system version, Windows 10, and actually the OS version that it's on. We can see detailed information about the hard drive space, memory space, the IP address, MAC address, and also any information that's on that particular system. We get that detailed information. Then we can go over and look at the different tabs at the top here. Look at the products tab. We can now also see when the products were deployed, the reported date of when they were successfully installed on that particular system. Next, we can look at the applied policies that were put down to the endpoint that we created in our policy catalog that can be pushed down to the endpoint and managed by EPO. And then the applied tasks that we are doing for the endpoints, on-demand scans, full scans, anything that has to do with that endpoint, we can push those tasks down to all the endpoints that are reporting up to EPO. The threat events, we can see everything that's happened now on that endpoint. There's no more guesswork of what happened and what time it happened, and actually what happened during the event, because we can actually click on a particular event. If we look up here to the right hand side, we see a chart of all the threat events that happened in the past 2 weeks. If I click on one of these peaks here, we'll notice that one of these threats, we can get detailed information on that particular threat. Again, you don't have to go to the endpoint and try to figure out what happened to it. It's all being reported back up to EPO via that communication from the agent back to EPO on the threat that happened. So let's click on a threat, and now we see the time that the threat happened. We can see that our EPO cloud is in the Mountain Standard Time, because that's where EPO received the threat event, but the event that happened on the endpoint actually happened in the East Coast time, in the Eastern Standard Time at 10:38 in the morning. And now we can take a look at the information down below on that particular threat. We can see it happen on the Intel NUC and the Intel security logon was created, and Explorer exe was the source of the threat. Actually, I have a rule on this particular endpoint that actually blocks Firefox from being opened. We have Firefox as a non-supported browser. We've only allowed Internet Explorer to be used on this particular endpoint. So somebody on this endpoint clicked on the Firefox icon and it actually blocked it because we've chosen to not allow that browser to be used. And then down below here, we'll see that the detailed information of that particular threat. As you can see, here's our storyline of what happened. It gives you detailed information, exactly what happened. It says that Mozilla Firefox exe violated a rule in the web control prohibiting the supported browsers and was blocked. And then it actually has a KB, a knowledge base number that you can go to at Intel Security and look at that particular threat to get more detailed information about how to deal with that particular threat. So going back to our previous screen, we're going to take a look at the system again and all the different categories. We have our McAfee Agent. This is the agent that was put down to the endpoint at that first initial deployment, and we have our endpoint reporting back to EPO every 5 minutes. In my environment, I don't have very many systems, so I've decided to move it down to 5 minutes. The default is 60 minutes, so we don't have too much communication back and forth to EPO if you have a lot of systems. And on a global aspect, if we want to take a look at our whole environment, we can now go to our dashboards and we can actually look at all the threats that have happened in our environment over the past couple weeks. And you can see that the pie charts here that show the different events that have happened. We can see those peaks and valleys. Instead of looking at one particular system, now we can take a look at our whole environment and we can really narrow down on certain systems that are having threats happen on their system. So I can click on this little pie chart here and it's going to take me right to that particular threat, and then it'll show detailed information about this threat. Again, giving you that overview of the whole organization as far as their security posture is concerned. Also, from the main dashboard, we have another category within this drop-down menu. We have our environment health. These are all pre-canned dashboard functions that you can click on to quickly get information on your systems. So we can look at the environment health of all the systems, and we can actually see what systems are not compliant with our policies and what rules we have pushed down to the systems. Maybe there's a firewall that's disabled or threat prevention that's turned off. Now we can actually look at the whole environment and see what systems do not fall into our compliance. So as we can see here in my whole environment, from one dashboard, I can see that one system does not have the firewall turned on. I can click on the red part of the chart here, actually go to that particular endpoint and remediate that threat that's or that incompliance that's on that endpoint. Okay, and as we can see, we drill down on that particular system that has the firewall that is not turned on. We're going to click on go to related systems, and we're going to be able to see that the Intel NUC has that firewall turned off. Actually, you can go to that particular system. These different buttons down here were actually it's like a quick link where we can actually take different functions that we do often, and we can actually put them down here in this quick link bar. As you can see, it's already down here, show client events, so I can't bring that one over. But what I did is I pulled this modify policies on a single system function down to the main taskbar. As I click on it, I'm going to go into that particular system, and we're going to go into the firewall category, and we're going to look at that particular policy. As you can see, the firewall is set to off. I set that in this on this system so I could actually demonstrate the in compliance of that particular system. We're going to leave it off so I can actually show that in the future. But I could take action against this, and I could actually turn it back on through the policy, and then push that change down to the endpoint. Once that assignment has been changed back to the default, we can actually go and put it to default and save it, and the firewall would be turned back on. Once we do the save, we would have to go back to the endpoint and actually update that system to have that change pushed out immediately, or it would update every 5 minutes because I have it set for that interval, or by default every 60 minutes. So we're going to click on the Intel security group. I'm going to choose that Intel NUC, and I'm going to do a wake up agent to that system. And this is going to, like I said, force that policy that was just changed to be updated at that endpoint. And once we do this, EPO will communicate to the endpoint and make that change. So that was a basic navigation of EPO Cloud. If you find this information useful or you need more information, feel free to contact me here at Tech Data. I am SE Intel Security at techdata.com, or you can reach out to it at McAfee Intel Security sales team here at Tech Data at intelsecurity@techdata.com.